Jennifer for hosting, and all the other people making this possible from Shanti Deva. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to get started, and what we're going to do to start is, again, settling into our motivation and, excuse me, meditation. And we're going to pick up the John Landau meditation, but let's again, as if you're starting a session, you find that comfortable space. And I know not all of you are in your normal home setting, and some people might be outside. And again, consider for a moment, what kind of pot are you? How am I showing up now? What kind of pot? Am I going to be able to retain and be a bright pot with, you know, the lid in the perfect configuration so I can hear everything and take it all in and make a beautiful pot of tea with these teachings? And slowly get your body in the right position and begin to deepen your respiration. And you might lightly close your eyes. And just check your posture for a moment. If you're in a particular posture where you're not outside walking or something, and just check that the spine is as extended as possible, not leaning too heavily against the back, you know, of the chair or a wall. Head is slightly tipped forward. Have a good balance for your body. And also check any places you're holding tension in the body. And as we did yesterday, let the inhalation open up space in those tense places and allow every exhalation to release more of the tension. And consider your motivation for our time together today. And again, getting some information on Tantra may inspire you to want to lay that foundation of the Lam Rim, of the 3 principles of the path: renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness, which encompasses the whole Lam Rim, to lay that foundation more solidly, to find the appropriate type of teacher if you haven't already, and to really think about deepening the practice so that you might be able to layer additional imprints of Tantra that may help you progress along the path more quickly. Just consider that for a moment. And the reason is so we can really show up and benefit all living beings. That's the real purpose of everything we're doing in Tibetan Buddhism. Enlightenment is simply the means to getting there, not the goal. So consider that, and if you'd like to fold that idea into your motivation, feel free. And considering your own motivation now, take a moment directing the mind in the most positive way, setting that motivation. And just feeling that pervading your body, mind, that motivation. And again, checking if your feet are flat on the floor, if you're in a chair. Checking your position on a cushion if you're seated cross-legged like that. Feel the grounding with the earth, with Mother Earth, as if the roots from the earth are coming through you like a tree, supporting you in your grace and glory of this path. So again, it is not in a leaden way holding you down. It's a supportive way. Just feel that grounding for a moment. And reflect again on the 3 channels running through your body. 3 channels. Central channel, again, from the center of your forehead, the 3rd eye position, going up to the crown and curving around and going all the way back down through the center of your body, more towards your spine. Diameter of a drinking straw, bluish on the outside, clear on the inside like a translucent tube of light. Central channel. To its right and left, the right and left channels respectively. Half the diameter of the central channel, running from the right and left nostril, respectively, going up to the crown, curling down and all the way down through the center of your body again, right along the central channel, where the lower ends curl and enter the central channel. The right channel is reddish on the outside, but clear on the inside. The left channel is whitish on the outside, clear as well. These translucent tubes of light. For these first 2 rounds of the 9-round breathing, imagine those lower ends of the side channels, instead of entering the central channel, they enter each other. We're going to close off the left nostril. We're going to breathe in deeply through the right. Going to bring the air down that right channel. It's going to cross over into the left. And as we exhale, closing off the right nostril, exhaling deeply through the left nostril, imagine you are lessening anger and hatred in your mind. One of the 3 poisons, 3 times. The second round, we're going to breathe in deeply through the left nostril, closing off the right. Going to bring the air down that left side channel. And as we exhale, it crosses over to the right. And then we'll close off the left nostril and exhale deeply through the right nostril, bringing the air up and out of that channel, decreasing attachment and desire in your mind. 3 times. The last round, we're going to breathe in through both nostrils. And this time, imagine the lower ends of the side channels now curl to enter the central channel. And as you exhale, imagine the air from those side channels coming in through both nostrils enters the central channel 3 times. And we're lessening ignorance and confusion in our mind. Just allow the mind to settle on the breath right now, just to settle, to let go the distractions. And just as a brief refresher to the meditation we did yesterday, again, as you're breathing in, feeling this energy that is opening up any blockages. Feel the tightness and any restriction leaving you as you exhale. Any sleepiness, confusion, any leftover delusions swirling around. And imagine it leaves you as a thick fog, thick smoke as you exhale. And every time you inhale, inhaling radiant space, positive energy. And slowly as you do this, eventually the breathing is just automatic. So as you let go of the breath a little bit, let go of following the breath, focus more on the experience itself. So focus your attention instead of whatever feeling, focus it on the feeling of clarity, the feeling of freedom, the weightlessness, the joy, if you're finding that. And just let that permeate your being. And recognize now at this very moment, imagine you're seated at the very center of a vast gathering of beings, human or non-human. So you could include animals if you like. You can imagine other realms, but imagine there's a vast number of them, countless, spreading out all around you. Some of this may be hard to visualize. So you just put as many people there as you can visualize and just try your best. And just imagine that many of these beings, the majority of them, are not experiencing the spaciousness you might be experiencing now. So just think about them trapped in self-created prisons of their petty, limited ego identities, searching here and there for pleasure, for a little bit of happiness, but again and again, it escapes them. Just think that they're ignorant of the ways that things truly exist. And so they're under the sway of powerful and destructive emotions, like the three poisons: confusion, attachment, hatred. But they have the potential to experience this pure, blissful, fully liberated consciousness, just like you. And just think for a moment, each being has within him, her, or themselves this infinite treasure, this potential for full enlightenment. But right now, it's distant from them. They may feel fragmented, alienated, alone. So think of the opportunity that you have being introduced to the Dharma, practicing the Dharma, how incredibly precious, and that we also have within ourselves Buddha nature. Doesn't mean we're a Buddha yet. It means we have this potential for this enlightened consciousness within us. So again, just thinking about that motivation, getting in touch again, we can use it through every daily activity. Once again, the beings that are suffering, the beings that are suffering. They're always out there. We often are included in them. So we listen, reflect, and meditate on these teachings when we can, expanding our motivation. We'd like to extract some pleasure for ourselves as well. Nothing wrong with that. But can we keep it in the framework of bodhicitta? Can we cultivate the pure and boundless bodhicitta motivation throughout all of our activities as much as possible? Wishing to use our knowledge of this tantric path in order to help all other beings without exception discover that treasure in themselves. And so when we get lost and when we struggle, there are tools available to us, like mantras, mind protection again, mind protection, mantra. And so using the mantra of the Buddha of infinite compassion, Chenrezig, Zig, the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum, I'm just going to put it in the chat for those of you that can see, and I'm going to put it in the chat how it's pronounced normally. So there's normally how we see it written sometimes, and how it's usually pronounced. Omani Peme Hong. Omani Peme Hong. And so feeling this energy, feeling any compassion you have for all those suffering beings around you. We're going to recite, we're going to chant first some of this mantra, then we're going to recite it. And you're going to send, imagine the rays coming out of your heart, touching each and every one of them. They're coming all the way out of your pores, every pore filled with this mantra. You can imagine the mantras coming out. You can imagine little aspects of Chenrei Zig, perhaps with one face and forearm version, coming out, touching every being, melting into them, relieving their suffering. No mani peme hong, mani peme hong, oh mani peme hong, oh mani peme hong, oh mani peme hong, mani peme hong, oh mani peme hong. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. We can recite on our own at any speed you'd like to go. Om Mani Padme Hum. And also feel that your whole being is filled up with this compassion. We ourselves would like to release our own suffering. Perfectly fine. And now I'd like you to focus specifically, if you can. Imagine people of this gathering, people that are included in this gathering, of people that you find very challenging in your life. You might have a particular face for them, of somebody you know personally. Could be a world figure, for instance. It could be a group of white supremacists, let's say. Could be terrorists, for instance. People who harm other people. So let's include them as well. Let's not forget them. This may be a little more challenging. We keep sending those rays of compassionate energy, filling up our whole being, radiating out from all of our pores, touching all of them, with little Chenrei Zigs dissolving into their hearts. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om mani padme hum, mani padme hum. Om mani padme hum, Om mani padme hum. And imagine now all the beings we've assembled around us have transformed into Chenrezig. And just imagine you're once again living inside this pure, wonderful, pure realm. Everything perfect. All your aches and pains are gone. All the signs of aging, any confusion you have, you also in this type of heaven, pure realm. Everything a dance of light. Every sound you hear is Dharma. And in this space, you have every perfect condition to practice Dharma perfectly. And slowly, bringing yourself back to the space, and imagine all the loving, compassionate energy that you just emanated. Okay. Imagine it all returning back into the center of your heart, like snowflakes dissolving into a still lake. Imagine all the beings we envision dissolving back into the space from which they came. And just allow, again, this compassionate energy, loving, compassionate energy to permeate your entire being. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes. And again, when you do, just be aware for a moment. Any effects you notice in your body and your mind. And may any energy we've generated from that meditation help us to recall as much as we can through the day that loving energy, that is always in our heart. So we're going to continue on with, I want to talk about the 4 classes of Tantra. The 4 classes of Tantra correspond to the different levels of desire that we're transforming when we're practicing. And you're transforming that bliss, because we know desire is very strong in us. We have mundane desire where, I want to have an apple. That kind of desire, just a quick, or you're in a shop and you go, oh, I want those shoes. I want that book, like that, okay? And then we have strong sexual desire, one of the strongest energies we have in our body. So can we transform that into the spiritual path? Seems like a much better way to use it, especially if it accelerates our path to enlightenment. So these are the 4 classes. The first level, and these are Sanskrit terms I'm going to use, and then give you the English word. Kriya Tantra is the first level. Kriya, Kriya, means action. Sanskrit, action tantra, an emphasis on external actions. And it corresponds for desire to looking or flirting or exchanging smiles with someone, kind of at that level of transformation. I'm using that energy like that, which we know is a lower energy that we're using. Number 2, acharya, or performance tantra. There's an emphasis again on external, but with some internal practices. And this would correspond to actually touching, like holding hands, that level of desire. You're transforming. Number 3, yoga tantra, yoga. An emphasis, yoga means to bind or yoke in a sense. An emphasis more on internal practice predominantly, corresponding to kissing, the energy, the desire that comes up from kissing. And number 4 is highest yoga tantra or Maha Anuttara. So the yoga tantra, yoga would also be Anuttara if they put it in Sanskrit. Maha Anuttara yoga corresponds to sexual union, transforming that energy. So let me go into a little bit more about the specifics of this. Okay. So, and this is a quote from Lama Yeshe, kind of thinking for, future tantric practitioners. The ways of differentiating 4 classes of tantra, as far as the intensity of the desire, like that, and then Lama Yeshe actually said at one point, "How much desire can you handle without going berserk?" It's a standard kind of thing that Lama would say. How much desire can you handle without going berserk? Normally, our desire runs away with us. Look at your life, for instance, okay? Instead of us controlling desire often controls us. And you can even look at your addictions. We're all addicted to something. We all have certain things like that. And people say, I can stop at any time. And right now, like I work with some people and they're addicted to their technology. And it's, and they go, oh, no, I don't, I can turn my phone off for a day. They say, I can turn my phone off for a day. They can't. They've been really struggling. Like it's just been, so just look at that. Just how much desirous energy can we control? Okay. Each of the 4 classes of Tantra deals with increasing levels of intensity. These levels are traditionally described, again, as I just did, about flirting, holding hands, kissing, and sexual union. So let me see what else I wanted to mention about this. Okay, for the highest class again is the most advanced class of the 4 tantras, is the one who can control the desirous energy aroused in sexual union. This is the strongest desire we tend to have. Most people find this level of desirous energy too powerful to be controlled. And therefore, not everyone's qualified to practice at that level of Tantra. The intended disciple of any class of Tantra is the one who can manage the intensity of desirous energy appropriate to that level. So, and we know, and there were jokes, I think, about teenage boys, like 19-year-old boys are at their peak of sexual arousal and things like this, and how it's very hard for them to contain it. And they're usually led by that energy. They're not thinking reasonably. But other people of other ages, women as well, go through that. So what we're doing in Tantra, and when you see deities in union, and we interpret it as sex, it's a mistake, okay? Because the sex we have ordinarily, ordinary sex, okay, there's nothing wrong with it. It's nothing inherently good or bad about it, okay? But if you want to get into like words like the bumping and grinding and the movement and things, because all of the movement that's involved normally for people is for you to arouse that sexual bliss via orgasm, where you're releasing energy. You're releasing the energy. In Tantra, you're not releasing it. Okay, so by holding that energy, you're able to do other meditations, and you're using that subtle energy system that we started with those 3 channels in the beginning, okay, to drive energy through those channels in a controlled way. Okay, so once you've been initiated into Tantra, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, and once you've gotten some transmissions of Tumo or the 6 yogas of Naropa or completion level practices like that, you're working with a whole different system in your body. And when you release the energy, it changes the whole thing, and the whole thing kind of falls out the bottom like that. So I had the good fortune, and I'm not any great practitioner, but I had the good fortune early in my Dharma career. I had this intention. After I met the Dharma, I came back to the States. I worked for a few more years, but I was starting to go to Buddhist centers. And I set myself up for 2 years working at this magazine where they paid me well. And I just saved all my money so I could go back to Asia for a year, really spend a year predominantly focused on Dharma and doing retreats and studying and things like that. I didn't really know what I was doing, but some karmic seed was ripening. And this became more important for me. So as a result, again, your practice can be about sacrifices sometimes. And one of the things that happened for me was I took a very cheap apartment in San Francisco at the time when I was working. San Francisco used to be mildly affordable, right? It's really not anymore. But, well, now COVID has changed a little bit of that. And I shared an apartment with 2 women and paid very little money for this room. I had a little small room. So I wasn't into like, I wanted to get a nice apartment and have a nice sofa and get the nice carpet and buy these things. I didn't want to do any of that. And I lived in this little room, and there was already furnished, some furnishings in it. And so all my money went to save. And then I took off for a year that turned into 2 years and went to Asia. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche, there was something called an enlightenment celebration. They used to have those. And it started in Bodh Gaya, India. And this was one of the 3rd or 4th ones. I wasn't even there in the early days. And all it was all these incredible teachings with these great lamas, including the Dalai Lama. And there'd be like, 3 weeks of this, and then you'd go, another teacher would come for 3 weeks to teach some high level practice, and then there'd be a big initiation, and then there'd be a retreat. Can you imagine? This was happening. It was just different time. The causes were there. The conditions came together that this is what people were doing and interested in doing more so. There was a large group of people doing it that had taken off from their regular life and done this, like myself. So then we went to Dharamsala, and I had heard and set up that Lama Zopa Rinpoche was leading a 3-month retreat called a Tumo retreat. The Dalai Lama was giving the initiation for it. Vajra Tantra initiation. Vajra is a big tantric deity, and the 6 yogas of Naropa is included in that Tantra. So we needed the initiation first. To get that, the initiation went over 2 to 3 days, just a few hours a day. And then there were teachings on the 6 yogas of Naropa from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, all in the spring of that year, 1990, I think it was. And then 60 of us made arrangements and had registered at Tushita, our center in Dharamsala, Northwest India. And we did this retreat for 3 months with Lama Zopa Rinpoche teaching and leading us through the sessions when he really taught us how to do retreat. First session, again, starting with Lama Chopa, but then taking us through sessions of how to visualize these channels, things. So this is my first retreat. Like, if you can imagine, whatever great fortune got me in there. And it really layered some imprints of these practices. And doing these things. Again, doing it in the right order, having the right initiation. And I had had other initiations before that, and doing it with the right instructions slowly so as not to aggravate your mind. Because when you're working with subtle energy, when you're working with tantric practices, and you're not doing it with a consort, you're on your own visualizing. You start by visualizing. You start by the generation stage again, generating yourself as the deity in these practices. And then you would visualize certain things that we were being taught. And so, and when you're doing it, if you're squeezing and pushing too much, you can get lung, which is a wind imbalance. And when you get it very badly, it can really harm you, and you can have pain in your heart and things like that. So you want to do it in a very balanced, relaxed way. Okay, but relaxed, but with firmness, meaning I'm got discipline in my sessions. I'm doing them at the right times, because eventually we started doing them on our own. There were 11 of us that finished the 3-month retreat. So a lot of people signed up for the first month and then had to leave, and some, less for the second month. And then 11 of us stayed for 3 months and developed some very close friendships with those people that we were on that retreat with. And so what you're doing is, when you're doing the sessions on your own, you had to maintain good discipline, that I was getting up, at 4 or 5 in the morning to start a session at that time, and doing the sessions repeatedly through the day that I had learned in the first month, without, Rinpoche wasn't there the whole time, and could you continue to do it? And one of the things I found, as far as not releasing energy, in desire, which is often ordinary sex is the purpose, is to release energy, is to reach orgasm. But for me, it wasn't. Now for women, the other issue for women is you get your period. So you're working with these subtle energy things. And because I was working with subtle energy things and focusing a lot at my navel, I started to get my period more often. And as soon as you did, you had no experience of any subtle channels. Any experience I had disappeared, and I couldn't do anything for like 3 days. It's like a concrete block inside of me. I couldn't feel anything anymore. So what I did is I continued the sessions. You keep the familiarity going. Okay, but I was releasing energy, was releasing that kind of more subtle energy. So it's something to think about in tantric practice, male, female, the release of orgasm as well. It robs you of something. It can rob you of something, as delightful as it feels. So again, the winds are getting close to coming into the central channel during sexual orgasm, but they don't enter the right way. They don't enter the right way. And then what happens is that tends to court inappropriate desire. And then you want to do it again and again and again, and it leaves that imprint in the mind. So it's something to think about like that. So to go on a little bit more, another way in which these 4 classes of Tantra can be differentiated is in terms of the various internal and external practices taught in Tantra. External practices refer to such things as eating only certain types of food, observing procedures of ritual cleanliness, and so forth. Internal practices are those connected with the inner process of meditation, creative visualization, and the like. Like we just did a creative visualization, okay? In the initial class, the emphasis in the Kriya Tantra, Action Tantra, the emphasis is mainly upon external practices. But once we reach the highest class, we're more occupied with internal practices of meditation, like that getting to Tummo or higher level practices. So for instance, most of the initiations I've had, and I asked Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche once about this, they seem to fit into Kriya Tantra, level 1, or they fit into highest Yoga Tantra, level 4. And I think one time we got an initiation that was like one of the second classes or something. And I asked Rinpoche, and Rinpoche just said that those apparently are most beneficial right now for the planet. So I'll give you an example of Kriya Tantra and how like the cleanliness and the food observation is the things that are practiced. Is thousand-armed Chinresig. Chinresig is a Buddha of infinite compassion. Thousand-armed Chinresig is an aspect of the Buddha that you can practice in a Kriya Tantra level and get a Kriya Tantra initiation of that deity. Okay. And in order to practice Nungne well, and I'll tell you what Nungne means. Nungne is a special 2.5-day retreat. Nungne, I believe, literally means abiding in the fast. It's a fasting retreat where you're visualizing images of the thousand-armed Chinresik Buddha, like that, the Buddha of infinite compassion. You're doing mantras to him with visualizations. You're doing a lot of prostrations, full-length prostrations, and it's a deep purification practice. And it takes 2 full days and then like the morning of the 3rd day. So it's ideal for working people because you can easily get that time off. People usually have 2 days off in a row. We did one with Shantideva Center at Menla, the retreats, Robert Thurman's retreat center in upstate New York. It was really wonderful. It was in the deepest, darkest part of winter, and it was a bitter cold weekend. And everybody was amazing. We did this Nungne, and the place is beautiful as well, even in the middle of the winter. It was just really cold. And the buildings were heated. So what we were doing with the Nungne, what you emphasize with Nungne is you want to be very clean for every session. And, brushing your teeth before every session, washing your face before every session. If you get sweaty from the prostrations, it's good to change your clothes and wear clean clothes and things like that. We observed precepts, 8 Mahayana precepts strictly during these Nungnes, meaning we take these vows before dawn, and there are 8 vows you keep for 24 hours, and you avoid eating onion, garlic, radish, meat, and eggs, because they tend to, first of all, they make you smell, foods like that, and they interfere with mantra recitation. And so again, it's observing those foods that interfere. And when you take one of those initiations, a Kriya Tantra initiation, which could be the thousand-armed Chinresik, could be an aspect of the medicine Buddha. Those tend to be standard Kriya Tantra initiations, but there can be others. They do remind you to avoid eating eggs that day, meat, onion, garlic, radish, like that. Avoid drinking alcohol, like that. Tantra, highest yoga Tantra, is the opposite because everything is transformed. Everything is transformed, okay? So now I'm not going to say, oh, you should go out and eat meat, but I'll explain something that surprised me a little bit. We were hosting a Vajrayogini retreat at Vajrapani Institute years ago. It's a female deity, a tantric deity of highest yoga Tantra. There are a couple of tantric retreats, tantric empowerment, that you can get, like Vajrayogini, who's a solitary aspect of a female. Chittamani Tara, another aspect of the female aspect. Those, in order to get those initiations, you need to have another tantric, highest yoga Tantra empowerment first. So the main tantric deities we're often working with are Yamantaka, Guhya Samaja, and Chakra Samvara. Some people have heard of those. There's also Kala Chakra, and I mentioned Hebadra. And so sometimes you'll see on the Lama Tsongkhapa merit field, the Lama Tsongkhapa merit field is on one version of the cover of Lama Tsongkhapa of the practice of Lama Tsongkhapa. It's not Lama Tsongkhapa Guru, the Lama Chopa. There was a new edition, an FPMT edition of Lama Chopa, and that merit field was right on the cover. I'm not sure if that's the latest one or not. But in that, you'll see 4, and this is below Lama Tsongkhapa, they have all these deities. So there's Lama Tsongkhapa in the center with his 2 disciples. And then above him are all these lineage lamas. Over his right shoulder on this side, you'll see Maitreya Buddha seated with his lineage around him of like a Sangha, his disciples and things like that. And they represent method, bodhicitta, those views and those teachings coming from there. To his left shoulder over here, you'll have Manjushri, the Buddha of infinite wisdom, and then his kind of lineage of Master Shantideva and coming down, bringing us the wisdom lineage of the teachings on emptiness. Okay. And then all below Lama Tsongkhapa are all so the top of that are the major tantric deities. And you'll see, I always get the orders mixed up, Yamantaka, I think Hevadra, no, Yamantaka, Chakrasamvara, Kala Chakra in the middle, Hevadra, and then usually Gui Samaja, and then Hevadra could be in that row. And then below that, you'll start to get Vajrayogini, and you'll see some other tantric deities, Chittamani Tara. And then the medicine Buddhas, the 21 Taras are in there at the very bottom, are the protectors. And that's called the Lama Tsongkhapa merit field. If you're interested in reading details on that, extreme details, is found in Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. The very first section of that goes into the details of that merit field, like that. So you can pop in and you can, and I kind of have them out there all day, and I have my lamas right above the tantric deities, right below Lama Tsongkhapa. I have all my personal teachers that I know. I pop them in there. And then you do a lot of practices with them. So again, that's why the Lama Chopa has all of those practices built in that I'll talk about in a little bit later. So what happened is we were hosting a Vajrayogini practice. And in order, again, to get that initiation, you'd have to take one of those bigger initiations first that tend to go over 2 days, meaning you have a preparation day, and it'll last, the initiation will last about 2 to 3 hours. There'll be certain things and substances they give you at the end of that day. They will give you, the teacher, the presiding guru, Vajra Guru, will give you also, you'll leave with something called kusha grass, a long and a short piece. What kusha grass is if you remember the store, Pier 1 Imports, I don't know if any of them still exist, Pier 1 Imports, they would sell brooms from like Indonesia, and they're made out of this straw. Okay, that's what kusha grass is. And it's used to sweep, it's used to clean. So they would give you, when you leave, and there's attendants that go out in the initiation and give everybody one long piece, one long straw, and one short one. And you put the short one under your pillow at night, and it faces, the feathery end faces the direction you sleep in, which tends to be on your right side. You put the long one with the feathery part up under your mattress, okay? So what it's supposed to do is sweep away obstacles to the second day, to actually receiving the initiation. So again, it's symbolic, but it's nice. And then they'll talk to you about watching your dreams, especially the dreams in the period in the morning before you wake up are supposed to be significant. And this is just traditional, how the initiations are given, like that. And then you're also given a protection string that you, like usually a red string, and you tie that around one of your arms and you keep it there, and it protects you to make sure you'll be able to get the initiation. So you need, and then you come back the next day, and the next day is going to be longer. And what you do generally on that day, and some of it's been done a little bit on the first day, but it's repeated, is there will be refuge precepts given, because in order to get the initiation, you have to take refuge. Bodhisattva vows are given, and you repeat after the Lama. So they'll say, repeat after me, and it's often all done in Tibetan very, very quickly. So you're kind of, you start questioning as a Westerner, am I getting this initiation? But over time, you learn the Bodhisattva vows, to taking the vows, and, you know, but in your mind, if you know it in English, sometimes you're saying that in English like that. And then they give you tantric vows. Those are vows you cannot study beforehand. So you have a little bit at that point of a leap of faith, a leap of faith. However, when you leap in Tibetan Buddhism like that, you've already gotten a measured view, hopefully, of having some study and understanding of the Lam Rim. You've already met with a qualified teacher to understand, to check their behavior. Spend a few years really watching them. Are they walking the talk? Are they authentic? Did you see them do something wrong? Can I check with somebody about that? Could my perceptions be mistaken like that? Or is there a problem with the teacher? So I don't want to go and get a tantric initiation with them. Don't just jump because everyone else is jumping. have a measured, reasonable approach where you've checked out these other things. You may have asked this teacher for advice, follow the advice, and really, really saw positive result. So then by the time you get in touch, you go, okay, I'm ready to do it. I know it's the quickest path to enlightenment. And because of that motivation that we just did in the meditation before this, all those beings need you, and they need you quickly. People are suffering. They haven't even met the Dharma. So we need to step it up a little bit. So you might get that motivation and inspiration and realize I need to take this initiation. And now you're going to have tantric vows. And these initiations also, these 2-day, 3-day, they could span 3 days, depending how long. Sometimes they're very long. And you'll show up on that second day. It could be 3 to 5 hours minimum, or maybe they've split it into 3 days. So it's like 3 hours a day. Sometimes it's like that. And so then they'll be giving tantric vows, and then usually they come with a daily commitment for the rest of your life, reciting something called 6-session Guru Yoga. 6-session Guru Yoga. It's a practice. It's a sadhana. It's another method of accomplishment of how to become a Buddha. If I do this practice regularly and keep this commitment, okay, with feeling, not just reciting it when you're driving your car without any thought. I mean, you're trying to meditate through it is even better. And again, you can build other practices into that, okay? So ultimately, I've come to, after having 6-session Guru Yoga commitments every day, okay, eventually made my way to the Lama Chopa, okay? And through that, I can build on my practices in. So I do, and one Lama Chopa, one full Lama Chopa counts as one 6-session Guru Yoga. 6-session Guru Yoga has to be done 6 times a day, but there's versions of it, okay? There's a long version, but it doesn't take that long, right? But there's a medium length version. There's a short version I wouldn't even bother with, but there's a medium length version you can easily memorize. So for me, the Lama Chopa is the main base, and then I will do 5 more of the medium length version of the 6-session Guru Yoga, because I don't have enough time to do all the long version. I like to do the long version once a day, because it has all the vows in it. Okay, I can't keep my vows if I don't learn the vows. So every day I'm refreshed with the vows. You know, every day they go in again. Oh yeah, that one. And then sometimes one will stick up and I'll be like, I didn't really do that one very well yesterday. Checking like that. So tonight I need to purify a little bit more. But usually now I know if I blew a vow, like if it's hard to really fully blow it, but I'll know with the, say, bodhisattva vows so then I need to do a little bit more purification that evening, okay? But tantric vows, it's very difficult not to blow them, because you kind of need the pure view of emptiness to keep them. And also containing sexual energy as well can be part of it, but you cannot learn those in advance. But again, what I often say when I'm doing purification practices is, I know I can't keep all the vows well until I have a direct perception of emptiness, but I'm doing the best I can, you know, and I have really good motivation. So that's what we have to keep working on, and telling yourself that I'm doing the best I can. Step by step, I'm moving along. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, again, like that. So let me go on a little bit more. Okay, so I mentioned Kriya Tantra, where you're very focused, being clean, refraining from food. So we hosted the Vajrayogini retreat, and it's a vegetarian center. Most of our centers are vegetarian. They don't serve meat, chicken, fish, anything like that. We had a great Lama leading us in this retreat. Amazing, amazing Lama. And the retreat was about 3 weeks long. Usually for Vajrayogini retreat, to complete 100,000 of the mantras, you would, it takes at least 3 weeks. Some people do it in 10 days. I prefer a month personally. I don't want to be pushed and squeezed and rushing. I'd like to really do the visualizations well and have feeling with it. So in the middle, everybody was getting all nervous, trying to squeeze in. I'm going to finish my mantras. Everybody gets into the counting. And I guess about 5-6 days into the retreat, the Lama said, he gave us an offering of money, a lot of money. And he said, I want you to go out and have your cooks buy meat for everybody. And we said, well, we didn't want to go against him because he's amazing. And we said, well, we're vegetarian. And he said, I know. He said, I know, if you could just honor my wishes and go out and buy meat for everybody, cook meat for people. So we did. We did. And I know a lot of people say Buddhists should be vegetarian, and meat requires animals to be killed, and it creates a demand for animals to be killed. Absolutely. Tantric practice transforms everything. So I'm not going to say just those of you that want to eat meat and say, well, I'm a tantric practitioner, isn't this great? This was a very unique request from a very highly realized being. And in that sense, I felt like he was transforming whatever. And we had so many volatile personalities at this retreat, really kind of strong personalities that were starting to get a little out of hand. And the meat grounds you. It's a heavy food that keeps you away from lung, that wind imbalance. Alcohol does the same thing. Listening to music, certain music will do the same thing. Going to see a film with beautiful scenery in it can also ground you, can keep eating peanut butter, eating heavy food, which is what meat was supposed to do. Okay, but you can do this today in the West with peanut butter, nut butters, heavier foods like that without eating meat. So it's really a personal decision. But I remember being a little shocked at the time, and I was like, I saw the cooks and I went, you're going to do what? And then I realized, and I could see how everybody just relaxed everybody. Somehow they were grounded. And sometimes you need a little bit more of that. Some tantric practitioners I know will say the meat, based on their type of physiology and things, it just helps them stay grounded and balanced. Again, personal decision. Tantric path is known by several different names, and we mentioned a little bit of this yesterday. The diamond vehicle, you may have heard, the diamond vehicle, Vajrayana, okay? Sometimes called the lightning vehicle. The lightning vehicle, because it's so quick. It's the quickest way, an alternative rendering of Vajrayana. These emphasize the speed with which these powerful teachings can lead us to, again, indestructible diamond hard state of enlightenment. Okay, and of course there's tantric vehicle, Tantrayana, a name derived from advanced discourses or tantras, in which Shakyamuni Buddha revealed these powerful teachings, and sometimes also called vehicle secret mantra, Mantrayana, vehicle of secret mantra, like that. So we have also diamond vehicle. It's no wonder to everyone why I like baseball. It's the diamond way. It's played on a diamond, okay? So I'm joking, but the diamond vehicle. So think about this indestructible nature that we talked about. Vajra, this inseparability of wisdom and method. Inseparability of wisdom, method, like that. Bodhicitta, emptiness. Okay. Tantric teachings are secret in the sense that these powerful techniques should not be exposed to those unprepared to receive them. People can go crazy, especially if they're not mentally balanced like that. So that's why they'll say secret mantra, to emphasize, to remind us that it's secret. The things that I can tell you have been taught in open teaching, so I am, but there's certain things that I'm not, I can't reveal like that. And then again, literal meaning of mantra, mind, protection or protection of the mind. And from the viewpoint of Tantra, when we're reciting a mantra, what our mind mainly needs protection from is falling under the influence of ordinary appearances. Again, falling under the influence of ordinary appearances. This is the way we tend to operate everyday life. It's very ordinary. And we interact with ourselves as ordinary, we interact with everyone else as ordinary. Okay, it's not really the way things exist in Tantra. What you're trying to see is the extraordinary. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, just a 5-minute break. And what I'd like you to do in the break, as much as you can, if you choose to get up or move around or have a drink, is do it from an extraordinary place. Again, can I be in this pure realm where everything is delightful, Every sound I hear is Dharma. Everybody around me are Dakas and Dakinis, holy beings, like in the nature of light. Everything is perfect. Can I just, for a moment, pretend, practice that? 5 minutes. And just to clarify, Naga, you had questioned how many prostrations. I'm not sure what you're referring to. If you can let me know, and how can alcohol do that? I'm not sure what you mean. So let me know when what you mean by that.
Sorry, there's sound coming. Give me 1 second. I'll come back.
Sure, no problem. So how was it being extraordinary? I mean, again, it's just a visualization, just we're imagining that until we're trying to take that result now of what it would be like to be enlightened like that. So just a little bit of practice of that. So Naga, yes.
My question was how many prostrations we have to do for the Vajrayana retreat you talked about in the beginning? I think.
For the Nungne, you mean?
Yeah, for the noon. Yeah, the two.
Nungne, it just depends on you. However, there's no number, no set number. But if you're doing preliminaries, it depends on the number your teacher gives you to do. But a standard set of preliminaries is 100,000 prostrations.
On the 2 days.
No. Sorry. There's preliminary practices. Okay, that was something I was talking about of these 9 different practices: prostration, Vajrasattva. There's 9 different practices we do. So they are called Nundro, and people get this mixed up with Nungne. Okay. So when you're doing prostrations as a preliminary practice, as a Nundro, the standard set of all those preliminaries might be 100,000 of each one. 100,000 prostrations, but your teacher may tell you to do less. Okay. When you're doing a Nungne, that's the 2-day fasting retreat. There's no set of prostrations. It's just, there's 3 sessions of prostrations during each session. There's 3 sessions a day. So in those 9 periods of prostrations, it really depends on how fast you do them or how slowly. The main point is to do them with a good visualization.
Okay. Yeah. The other thing was about alcohol, because I have always known and seen alcohol always makes people weary. And how can that be grounding you?
Yeah, well, normally we don't drink as Buddhists. I have a vow not to drink as well. So, and some people have taken lay vows not to do intoxicants, which includes alcohol. There's a famous teaching of even 1 drop, the Buddha says, is too much because it alters your state of mind. And there's a famous story about that. And so it just matters for those that do drink alcohol, if you're finding your mind is flying around too much, a little bit of, red wine or something can kind of ground you. Some people find that, and they find that that can be an antidote.
Probably in anxiety. I've seen people.
Yeah, it can be an antidote to lung, they say. Not getting drunk necessarily, but just a little bit too. I know, for instance, there's people that have tremors, that develop tremors that are not Parkinson's. Yeah. Later in life, it's quite common. My father had it. He didn't really have Parkinson's, but he had a bit of a tremor, and the doctor said if he could drink a little bit of red wine, a glass of red wine a day, apparently it really worked. He didn't like to drink that much. He wasn't really a drinker, but when he did, he noticed there was a difference and the tremor would go away. So it must have some kind of effect on the subtle energy system, I would think, like that. Other questions coming up right now? Anybody?
Hi, Venerable Amy. I had a question about Nyungne. So is Nyungne itself a Kriya Tantra practice, or would we prepare for it using a Kriya Tantra initiation and practice?
It's a Kriya Tantra practice, yes. And ideally, if it's possible, before a Nungne to get the Kriya Tantra, or I think there is a highest yoga tantra of the 1,000-arm Chenresig, but it's slightly different. There's a few initiations that are slightly different, like Vajrasattva, again, is another one. It's better to get that initiation before you do the Nungne, because it's about how you visualize in the Nungne. If you've had the initiation, you can visualize yourself as Chenresig, as this aspect of the Buddha when we're setting up the visualization. If you have not had that initiation, I do lead Nungnes for people that have not had the initiation, and they have to just, I tell them to do the visualization of the Buddha on their crown, and everything happens there.
Thank you.
Sure. Everybody okay? Anything else coming up right now?
I was just wondering, like, there seems to be so much, like, 3 or 4 years ago, if someone would say tantric, I'd have a different idea than what it means now. So it's not worth dispelling the misperception of what this is. I guess the secrecy, I think it's a secrecy that makes people think, oh, it's all about sex. Whereas, I guess I was wondering what makes it so private that it's not worth dispelling, like, all the misconceptions about what it is.
Yeah. The secrecy is also about, it's not just about the issues of sex, it's how you're using those energies. And the reason it's secret is until you've been properly initiated, it's dangerous to use those energies in that way, the way you're being trained. So that's part of the secrecy. It's not really about dispelling the myth of sex, like, oh, they're having sex. They are in union in a unique way, okay? And then they're using certain meditations in a very unique way, visualizing internally. So without having the proper initiation of how to do that, you can drive yourself crazy. You can cause a lot of damage. So that's why it's been a secret path. That's a lot of the reason. And what was always weird for me when I moved to California, I don't live in California anymore, but I did for a while. And in California, there's a lot of new age practices going on constantly. And I really liked the open-mindedness of it and the things I was learning, and was great. And, at times, this is before I was a nun, and I had a boyfriend, and we used to go to these clothing optional spas that were very famous in California, and very relaxing places. And I used to camp there and just totally chill. But there were a lot of workshops, new age workshops there, and massage and everything, right? And so you'd be in this warm pool. They had incredible spring water, like hot pools and soaking, and it was great for your health. And we would be in this pool, and you're in this pool and everybody's naked, right? But sometimes I'd be there, but with a girlfriend, by myself with a girlfriend, and some guy would come over to me, and somehow you get to know people there. So people knew I was a Buddhist, and so he would come over to me telling me he was a great tantric practitioner. Beware, okay? Like, I could see it was a very cruisy place as well, right? So he comes over and I hear you go to this center, and okay, it's nice, you meet people, everybody very friendly. And he would declare to me he was a great tantric practitioner. Well, if somebody declares to you that they're a great tantric practitioner, they probably ain't, okay? Because again, that saying, those who know don't say, and those who say don't know. And so then he was like, and there I am with my friend, and we're kind of like, how do we get rid of this guy? And then he really wanted me to come to his room, and he wanted to talk to me about tantric practice. And I finally just looked at him and I was like, you want to have sex with me? And he was like, and then he said, yeah. And I said, no. That's not happening, sorry. So there were people that have this idea, and I'd see posters up there, tantric sex workshop. And it really bugged me so much, because once I learned a little bit more about Tantra and had empowerments, I just feel like it's leading people down the wrong path. And so on one level, though, if they're kind of using sex and making love with people, nothing wrong with that, quite beautiful as well. If they're using it to try to actualize in a little bit more of an extraordinary state rather than just their own fulfillment, or just the fulfillment of their partner through reaching, orgasm or something, then I thought okay, maybe some good imprints happening. Channeling that energy, not releasing, then I thought it could leave some good imprints like that. But a lot of people would go to the workshop thinking they're going to have sex with somebody, So you just have to get your mind oriented in the right things. Yes, Mary, eggs are a grounding food. Eggs could be seen as a grounding food. But again, if we're doing a Nungne, which focuses on Kriya Tantra, those external practices of cleanliness, that's why alcohol and eggs, those foods are not allowed during that time, because they're also, they make you, they're smelly. They're smelly foods. They don't contribute to saying mantras as well and things like that. But they can, I find eggs can ground you. So if you're a vegetarian that eats eggs and dairy, that can ground you without eating meat or other animal products. David.
Hi, Venerable Amy. I was wondering if you could comment briefly on the state of, or the ability to go practice in the East, at least for short periods. I know you mentioned there was more or less a golden era and all these people came together and it was amazing. And so, sort of what's it like today, and maybe today being before the whole COVID situation, if you know anything about that.
Yeah, I would stay in touch with some of our centers. For instance, Tushita Dharamsala, they host some group retreats. And once COVID is over and we're able to travel again, Root Institute is another place in Bodh Gaya, India, which is an incredible pilgrimage site for Buddhists where the Buddha got enlightened. We have a little garden oasis center there, and it could be in the season they will host things with some teachers. But what I found, the Dalai Lama will be teaching again, I hope, and often he'll give more in-depth discourses in South India at the monasteries, and you can attend. I've attended many times. Now, the thing is, it's not easy to do this, to go to India. So what I found anymore is from the United States, it's the other side of the world. It's a long flight, it's expensive to get over there. And if you go to South India, you need a special permit. You have to apply for months in advance. It's easy to get it, but you have to take care of that. And you need to find a room to stay and figure all that out. And so what happens is more and more I find that Westerners are not going very much anymore, less and less. It used to be a huge influx of white Westerners, I'll say as well. And now when we go, because Asia is a lot closer to India, in Taiwan and Singapore and countries like that, Buddhism's really, Taiwan, they're Buddhist countries. So somehow Buddhism's really taken off, and many of those people will come, and they tend to be more of a majority of the people there, as well as Buddhism is booming in India once again. So it's come home to India where it originated. It originated on that border with Nepal, the Buddha being Indian. And so there's many, many Indians now coming, and which is lovely. And so I find that for the hippie generation that got this started, they're too old now to go over there. I talk to some of my friends and they'll say, I don't want to go to Laos. I can't walk up there. It's too cold. It's too hard to live up there. You have your comforts and you don't really want to be living in a simple room at the monastery or being in a guest house in India where the mattress isn't that comfortable so I find less and less of that older generation that was populating most of these programs. They're in their 70s now and they're not going as often. But it still can happen. I was just at teachings. His Holiness teaches every year in Dharamsala before COVID started. And there's a lot of people that go to that. There's people living in Dharamsala, people like me, Westerners, that are studying and living there and have set up kind of an early retirement where, because you need less to live on in India. They're able to do it. And you just have to manage your visa. And so there are programs that are going on like that you can find out about.
Thank you very much. And would you mind briefly repeating the names of the two centers? There was the Root Center and a Dharamsala one.
One is called Root Institute, coming back to the root, ROOT, Root Institute. You can find all of this if you go to FPMT, I'll put it in the chat. FPMT.org is our umbrella organization, the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition. Shantideva Center is one of those centers. If you go to fpmt.org, go to the Centers tab, and click on what region of the world, all the centers are there.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
The Root Institute, one part of India, Northwest India in Dharamsala is Tushita Retreat Center. Tushita, wonderful center. I love teaching there. I love teaching both places. And we have centers in Delhi, Bangalore. There's several other places in India now that may host things like that. But now Rinpoche also might be hosting like Light of the Path retreat in North Carolina. It's 1 month. It's very different than the India stuff, but it's more comfortable. You know, we need more comfort. And it's a comfortable way to go and have teachings with a master that can be pretty wonderful. So I would recommend that. And if you can't go for the month, go for a weekend like that. Yes,
I have a question. So a lot of it, what you're teaching through the weekend is a lot of general practice we do at the Kadampa, right? And then a lot is in Hindu. So I'm trying to compare, contrast. Like salutation, prostrations, and the rope, and the initiations, and it's like a common living thing in Indian, growing up in Hindu.
Yes.
And I don't feel so odd, but I don't really know the depth of the Tantra exactly. That's why I'm here. But a lot of it is so familiar, and I don't know. Because many women, as you know, families, we are doing this normally, regularly, and I don't know what affects it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the way Hinduism, it's practiced differently. So I don't think what you're saying you're doing normally is actually tantric practice, the way it's taught in the Tibetan system, from what I've been familiar with in India. So
Okay.
like when you say initiation in Hinduism, what do you mean by that?
We do the initiations of the rope, the tie, the string, and when you go to temple, when we have prayers, the weekend we fast, and we are doing vegetarian, and then we tie the rope, the string,
Sure.
and all those are so common, and
Okay.
I don't know why it has to be so secret.
The difference is, and it's really beautiful also how Hinduism's practiced, and it's very integrated in life. And I've been to many Hindu temples and seen the practice. I have friends in India practice Hinduism. So let me talk a little bit about tantric and empowerment. Tantric empowerment. I mentioned to you about the 2-day, 3-day. Once you've done a highest yoga tantra empowerment, which is going to be deities like this, Yamantaka, Chakra Sambhara, sometimes called Haruka, okay? Yamantaka, sometimes called Dorje Jigje, okay? Don't get too worried about the terms, and remember, I couldn't remember anything in the beginning. And when they took me into, I had this crash course in Dharma because I went on the trip to Tibet with Rinpoche with 60 students. I knew nothing, I wasn't even a Buddhist, but all the images you're seeing in the Tibetan monasteries, I didn't know, they all looked alike to me. They'd say, this is Yamantaka, and then I point to one, I'd say to one of the monks, is this Yamantaka? And he'd like, no, that's, I couldn't keep track. So don't obsess too much about it. Just give an imprint right now. So we have Yamantaka, Chakra Samvara, Kala Chakra, which is a unique one called the Wheel of Time, unique deity that's often given in big public arenas. His Holiness the Dalai Lama is someone who's authorized to give that initiation, one of the masters of it. And that is one where people can attend as a blessing, just to come and kind of get the experience, as long as when His Holiness will say, recite after me, that you don't recite anything. You just sit there calmly taking it in, and you won't come out with any daily commitments. Kala Chakra initiation is one of those. It's rare that it's given anymore. There's very few lamas who can give it. And His Holiness hopefully will give it again like that. I'm not sure where, like that. So also other Tantric deities, Gui Samaja, Hevadra. So you get a sense, those are the big Tantric deities for the Tantric classes, Tantric. And then once you've taken one of those, you can then come into a one-day Vajrayogini or Chittamani Tara initiation. When I say one day, it's only going to be a few hours, like 3 hours. It's given, it's simpler, it's quicker, and you're visualizing. And what happens in a highest yoga tantra initiation, and to a lesser degree in Kriya Tantra, in the lower tantras, is you come in and you're doing everything through visualization. The Lama first talks about motivation. They might even give a teaching on the 3 principles of the path, like that, just a general overview, maybe for a few days before the initiation. Again, why? To prepare people's minds. I mean, it used to be in ancient days, you would have to study that for 3 years or 7 years or something to get a tantric initiation. Now everything's so degenerate, they'll give you 3 days of teachings on the 3 principles of the path and then give the initiation. Okay, so everything's very easily accessible now. So then the initiation will start, and again, motivation is discussed, and trying to see the Lama as a Buddha that's giving it to you, and as the actual aspect of that deity. And then they'll give refuge precepts, bodhisattva vows, with some little bit of discussion about that. For some people, it might be their first time they're taking refuge, and they do it right then in that ceremony. Sometimes teachers, if it's a smaller group, they'll say, the center will say, we have 5 people that want to take refuge, and the Lama will say, we're going to do it at the beginning of the initiation. And then they'll pause for a moment and ask those 5 people to stand up, and then the Lama will give them a special refuge right then before. And then the rest of us will repeat the refuge precepts, bodhisattva vows, and then tantric vows. Okay. And then through visualization, they start describing the mandala of the deity, what you're supposed to visualize. So you're all doing it through visualization. Various substances are given out. So you come through different aspects of the initiation. It starts with the vase initiation. And it goes through the vase initiation, the wisdom initiation, the word initiation is last. The vase initiation, the secret initiation, the wisdom initiation, and the word initiation. And so basically, I can't say a whole lot about them, but a vase initiation is about cleansing and purifying, which we again said was one of the most important things we can do to get initiation. So, and then what they might do, depending on how many people are in the audience, they'll have attendance from the Lama. The first thing you also have to do when you enter in even Kriya Tantra is the Lama's already initiated and done a practice for several hours before they give the initiation, where they're doing that practice of the deity and arising as that deity. They imagine, okay? And they bless certain substances that are on the altar, and a very elaborate altar is set up, okay? Sometimes in the case of Kala Chakra initiation, there'll be an elaborate sand mandala set up. It's a configuration of the Kala Chakra world system, just in that configuration, and it's put in a special structure to protect it. And it's used just for the initiation. So then what will happen is in this vase initiation, you first come in and you rinse your mouth with saffron water that you spit out, and they'll have buckets for that if you come into an auditorium. Again, it's about cleanliness. And then highest yoga tantra with vase, they'll send out the attendants after the Lama has repeated some things and told you to visualize, and they'll put the vase on your crown and you try to visualize. It all happens quite quickly sometimes. And they're going through a row of people tapping each of them on the head. Okay, but again, it's symbolic. And His Holiness has even said, when you're in an auditorium, 5,000 people taking an initiation, how many people really get it? Maybe 25? Maybe the main Lama sitting on the stage with His Holiness and a few others, serious practitioners. But again, we get imprints. We get imprints. So they will take you through these various stages: vase, secret, wisdom, word, based on the levels of the kind of desire you're envisioning. You know, with a consort, what you're trying to envision happening through those phases while you're in this grand imagining world system of the deity. Okay, and then after after the first day, you're given the kusha grass, you're given the protection string, put it under your bed, watch your dreams. You come back for the actual day of the initiation, and the Lama will say, if you dreamt about this, all it is it signifies. It's not to scare you. They'll say, if you dreamt about red flowers, it's very bad. It's a bad sign. But I've never really seen where they don't tell you not to take the initiation. It could be a way, it's just purifying obstacles like that. And also the Lamas have changed over the years, the initial things they would tell you, for instance, of what kind of dream you'd have, didn't really relate to Westerners so much. So they mention, and this is before they really understood the West and traveled in the West, they would say in an initiation, if you visualize in your dream, if you saw in your dream that you were riding a yak backwards over the barley fields into the sunset, that means, you know, that's not a good sign because the sun is setting. Like it could indicate that you're going to die or something. We don't dream that we're riding a yak over the barley fields. We drive, you know, that we're in a red VW Beetle on the LA freeway. You know, so over the years, they've adapted some of the dreams. But again, the images, I've never seen the significance of it's always nice when you have a nice dream, because it could mean that this is a practice you're going to do, this is a retreat you're going to do, or that you're in a really good space to take the initiation, maybe feeling like you're going to get it on a deeper level, that you're more concentrated like that. Let me just check a little bit. Thank you, Jennifer. Sent a message. Yeah, thank you, to answer somebody's question. Thank you. Talks about the differences between Hindu and Buddhist Tantra. Okay, she's mentioning, yeah, there are some questions. Okay, let me see, there's one other question here. Oh, Barbara, so you went to Dharamsala in the 90s. Okay. You can see okay, just reading this in the chat. Okay, so here's somebody, and I relate to you, Barbara. Thank you for saying this. She went to Dharamsala in the 90s. She was probably there with me. Took classes, took initiations with His Holiness. And now in her 70s, she's struggling with health issues, which is common, okay? And it frustrates her with her practice. So I would say, based on so many of my friends in their 70s, what they say about how they used to practice, I know many of them that were ordained and are no longer ordained. And when they look back, they always say, that was my favorite time of life. Okay, so we all have those kind of little images and things like that. I would say what's helpful is you do the best you can do right now. That's all you can do. And how wonderful that you have imprints of those years in your mind that are going to carry you on into future lives. Those imprints are still going to be there. So all you can do now is to do your best. And if we find as we get older that we have mental and physical issues, which most of us are going to have or have already, it's really common. And I also think it's a sign of the degenerate time of how many of my friends in their 70s have issues, can no longer go back. And some of them that have good health, they say they're not practicing the way they used to. They're interested in streaming Netflix videos. They're looking at stuff on their phone. They're streaming through Facebook. And they say that they're distracted by technology and other things. And somehow those incredible vital seeds and positive imprints the luster has gone. So I think it's part of a degenerate age. It doesn't have to be that way, but if you are having mental and physical challenges, just please do the best you can, and that's good. And then think about all those other imprints you have, like that. Okay, I want to talk about Guru Yoga, a little bit more about Guru Yoga. We were talking about the Lama Chopa yesterday, and I've got a little bit more I want to also say about that. When you're practicing, the reason you practice Guru Yoga, and I said with clear divine pride and clear appearances, okay? Everything coming from emptiness. We're not thinking, I'm kind of ordinary Joe Schmo, okay? This is from John Landau's transcript as well. Not ordinary Joe Schmo. I can just hear him saying that, okay? But for the moment, you don't say I'm just ordinary so-and-so. For the moment, I'm going to believe that I'm the Buddha of compassion or I'm Chakra Samvara, okay? It's not like that. The part is emphatically, is not what is involved in seeing oneself as the deity. Instead, before we visualize ourselves, again, I said this yesterday, as arising as the deity, you have to dissolve your ordinary conception of yourself into emptiness, bringing to mind whatever understanding of emptiness you have. Okay, we recognize that the ordinary limited image that we have of ourselves, the object, okay, I'm holding on to with my ego grasping ignorance, okay, does not exist at all. It's a complete hallucination, as Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, complete hallucination. It is an inauthentic, severely edited and distorted vision of who we are and how we exist. This is how we go through our everyday life. I'm sorry, okay? So I'm not laying a trip on you. I'm just saying, let's reflect on that and realize that. And every day when I go to the grocery store, a little reflection. If I'm holding myself, I need that cucumber. Somebody's in my aisle. That I that arises at that moment doesn't exist at all. Doesn't exist at all. Don't court it. Don't enhance it and embellish it. Okay, our ego grasping ignorance does that automatically. So Tantra, especially Buddhist practice, but especially Tantra, is going to go after that I. It's going to go after that I, okay? And so then, where was I? Okay, it's really a distorted view. Okay, using emptiness, this is the third of the three principal aspects of the path, using emptiness, okay? We practice cutting through and letting go of the false vision of ourselves. If we fail to practice this emptiness yoga well, okay, the deity yoga that follows is mere pretense. You're planting some seeds, but it's not going to the core. What do we do right now if we don't have that much of an understanding of emptiness? We try our best. That's great. We try our best. We read some simple books about emptiness first. We read those few pages in some of the Lamrim books about emptiness. Turn it over in your mind. Do you understand it? If not, ask questions. Learn how to meditate on emptiness. Then you're going to go to deeper books on emptiness, like that, so that you're constantly poking at this inflated notion of myself that carries me around all day just simply because of my ignorance, my fundamental ignorance. Every ordinary person has it. It's not about getting down on yourself. We're doing the best we can, okay? And as taught by Shakyamuni Buddha, and all the masters that followed him, many different methods and approaches for dissolving the false image we have of ourselves. In general, we take a good look at the way in which we currently picture ourselves. Recognize the false qualities, let go of it. And this is, again, constantly every day working on emptiness as much as you can. Then when our awareness reappears from the space of emptiness, in which ordinary self-identity has dissolved, the ordinary self-identity has dissolved, we place the label I upon ourselves as the deity. On the basis of having received the required empowerment from a qualified tantric master, qualified tantric guru, the sense of I is identified. Not with your ordinary body, okay, not with your ordinary body and mind, but with an enlightened form and blissful consciousness of the visualized deity. Through this practice of self-generation, combining clear appearance with divine pride, we train ourselves to be the Buddha we are visualizing. So again, we're leaving these imprints in our mind. We're practicing right now without a firm understanding of emptiness, but we try. We will generate ourselves as the deity, but you can't just blop it on to Joe Schmo again, the ordinary view of yourself. Think about that view of yourself first and say, wow, I take myself so seriously. I'm the center of my universe. And then through a 4-part analysis, when you're meditating on emptiness, you dissolve that view of yourself. There's nothing inherently there to latch onto. It doesn't exist at all. But you need to do that 4-part analysis in meditation as much as you can over and over to get a sense of how that I appears and exists. Okay? If it appears and exists so concretely, that notion you have of yourself, you feel it, it's huge. It's operating right now. Okay? Then you should be able to find it in your body and mind. And in that meditation, you go on a hunt looking for the I, for that inflated experience, that ego grasping sense of yourself. And you will look, and you have to look carefully. And I would start with the body. Again, use how to meditate. Use the emptiness meditation in there. It's very, very helpful. It's very clear. It's very helpful. Just think about when you're hungry and there's, I'm hungry. Look how the I comes out. I'm hungry. Think about when you stub your toe or hit your knee against something and you go, ow. And all of a sudden your whole mind, your whole energy, I goes there to your knee, to your toe. Ow. And that's all your foot. So use that as an experience in a part of your mind to think about when you're very angry with somebody. So angry with somebody. They just burned you. You want to get them. Use that as an example and keep that in a part of your mind as you're doing the analysis. So that I arises. There it is. Wow. Or when you have huge desire over someone, I must have them. I gotta have that thing. Use that as a part. There's that I. There it is. You have to be able to find it, body or mind. Analyze. And then you learn how to analyze accurately like that. That's a whole other course, how to analyze accurately. You can look at some of the emptiness. Again, if you want, I will put in the chat, I will research this at the break, the emptiness meditation I led at Light of the Path. It's connected to my website, so I'll try to find the link and I'll put it in the chat when we come back. And but also Lama Zopa Rinpoche has much better, his over and over how he's talking about the I. You can read in some of the transcripts from the past Light of the Path retreats. You can find all of these also at the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive. Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive is here, which has all of the teachings of Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa. LYWA. You can find amazing teachings, transcripts, and you can just search on emptiness and it'll bring up some of Rinpoche's teachings on emptiness, or look at Lama's teachings and let it sift in a little bit. Let it sink in slowly, because it's a lot, it's very profound. In the beginning, it's hard to understand. Slowly let it sink in, let it sink in. Pick up the How to Meditate book or order that, and over do that meditation. Can be really, really helpful. Can be really, really helpful. Okay, let me go back to Guru Yoga. A few other things before we take a break. Okay. So when we begin with self-generation practices, okay, a lot of it is contrived in the beginning. I didn't really have the proper space of emptiness. So I'm kind of trying to imagine this deity, but it's kind of me. That's expected. That's okay. We're making imprints. We're making imprints like that. Tantra is a method in which we're taking a future result again. So I have to practice that result for a long time. I have to practice that result to get used to thinking. And that first line of emptiness is always there in the beginning of the tantric visualizations like that. So this process is a bit like priming a pump. To get water out of the pump, you have to pour a little water into it first. Tantric visualization practices are a bit like that. So we fabricate a vision, okay? Then the vision enables us to contact our essential purity, okay? And as a result, a flood of experience rises out of the depths of our being. The entire process, therefore, is supremely skillful means for arousing latent energy that's already existing within us. Okay, can be helpful. And just a little recap here. In our self-generation practices in Tantra, we're visualizing ourselves as having the clear appearance of the deity, okay? Some meditational deity. I mentioned Chenrezig, Zig, the Buddha of Infinite Compassion, or highest yoga Tantra. We're going to look at Yamantaka, Chakra Samvara, Kala Chakra, Guya Samaja, Hevadra, major tantric deities, okay? Keeping not only the clear appearance of myself as the deity, but with the divine pride of actually being that deity. Not the pride that is a delusion, but the pride again that realizes I need to actualize this state because of all the suffering beings. That's why we did that meditation in the beginning. Let's not forget about them. I know some of us are more obsessed with others' suffering. I understand. Keep a balance in your mind, right? So I like to keep those beings out there knowing, and I keep a little bit current of the news to know about the suffering and the different beings, but I don't let it topple me. You know, again, because I have the clear appearance, again, I'm empowered. I'm helping them the best way I can. I'm doing it as quickly as I can. I'm doing the best I can. That's all I can do. Can't do any better. I'm a human being. I'm ordinary, and I suffer from making mistakes and being lazy and undisciplined, or whatever you've got, depressed, anxiety, whatever your trips are, jealous, things like that. But again, part of the day I'm going to be working on it, and more of my day I work on it as a tantric day. I'm trying to keep that view through my day, informed, but with balance. I'm not great, like I'm a deity. Worship me, not at all. No, I'm trying to do this because I was taught it was the quickest way. I did it in the proper way with the proper teacher, with the proper empowerment, with the proper guidance, instructions, okay? And I'm keeping that divine pride to remind myself, I can do this and I have to do it. Why? For all those suffering sentient beings. The way of combining, okay, method and wisdom as much, even at my baby level, right? These activities include, again, through the practices we're going to engage in the sadhana, this is how they're set up, making and receiving offerings, okay? Why do we make and receive offerings? You see this in lots of practices. We do this in our pujas for Shanti Deva, okay? They arouse, and I'm using the word arouse, our blissful wisdom, okay? It arouses the blissful wisdom, not uncontrolled sexual energy, blissful wisdom. Different space of mind. When I said in the beginning meditation, and you put yourself into imagining a joyful experience coming in. Why don't we imagine that more? What happens is we start hallucinating with all the tragedy in the world. You know, there's a lot of problems in the world, but if we let it mire us, okay, in the muck, and keep us stuck there, how are we going to benefit beings? How are we going to help people? Like that. Okay, so part of it is, that's why we make these offerings. Also included reciting the mantra of the deity. And the mantra of the deity has an external quality. We recited Om Mani Padme Hum in the beginning, external quality, but it also has an internal resonance. There's an internal resonance that has, and then that activates that subtle energy system that I was giving you a little taste of with the 3 channels. Okay, and what we want that energy system to be, that subtle one, there's different channels and there's drops riding through those channels, and sometimes they're obstructed. Why are they obstructed? Because of delusion. Because I have too much jealousy or pride or aggression or fear or anxiety or depression in my mind. And that obstructs that subtle energy system. And you know, when you're really suffering deeply from these things, it makes you ill, right? And you might feel pain in your chest or an obstruction in your throat or a headache or absolutely. So we know that there is some kind of subtle mechanism working. If we can keep it subtle and serviceable, they actually use the word serviceable, then we can actualize these states more easily. and have everything running the way it's supposed to run, where I can bring those winds in to the central channel. Imagine, okay, many of you know sexual orgasm. Imagine if you can bring the winds in the right way. Talk about bliss. Oh my God, right? But that's not the reason we're doing it, just for the bliss. That's not the reason. We're doing it to benefit all living beings. So again, other activities, making and receiving offerings, reciting mantras, sending out rays of light that bring comfort to other beings and bring about their enlightened transformation, right? And so forth. All of these are methods for reinforcing the experience of divine self-generation. And again, rehearsals for the actual experience of being the deity. The Buddha we will become in the future will spontaneously experience blissful wisdom and will effortlessly emanate light and sound that has a pacifying and enlightening effect on others. This is what we're preparing for with Guru Yoga. We're going to take a break. And I just want to give you a little exercise in the break time. Okay? Okay. We have a break until 2 o'clock if you're able to come back at 2, and we'll finish. We'll do some more practice, and we're going to talk about the union of method and wisdom in Sutra and the union of method and wisdom in Tantra and any other things like that, the uncommon preliminaries, which involve things like that and empowerment and gurus. And in the break time, as much as you can, see everything as a product. Everything exists simply because of its parts, because of causes and conditions. You know, what is it that you can see around you that exists inherently, concretely, never changing? It means if it's inherent existence, it means it never changes. Never came from anything else. It's frozen in time and space. It's always that thing. That's what inherent nature means. It's always that thing. Okay? Look at your cup. Look at your food that you're eating. You know, and when you eat your food, if you're going to have a break and eat something, okay, think about the Buddha in the space in front of you for a moment. And just for a moment, offer the food to him first, like a precious guest you're having at the table, where you always want to serve the guest first, like that. You can also think about all those living beings we visualized around us suffering. After we offer to the Buddha, what if we offer to them and think it turns into whatever they need to relieve their suffering? These are different ways we can start a little bit bringing in that taste of Tantra. And let's dedicate whatever positive energy we've created from this morning. Thank you so much for your wonderful questions, comments, for your attention and your effort. And let's invest it, again, in our being able to move along the path of Tantra, practice it well, do our practices as best we can, regardless of our obstacles, leaving imprints for future lives and getting us enlightened as quickly as possible so we can benefit all living beings. So please have a nice break, and okay, very nice comment from Claire. Thank you very much. And hope to see you at 2 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you, enjoy.